Somewhere along the Nile, a chisel struck stone, and a queen began to disappear. Not in battle, not in death. Years after she was gone, someone wanted the world to forget she ever ruled at all. Stand in the ruins of an Egyptian temple today, and you will see faces missing from the walls, not worn away by wind or time, but deliberately cut out, name by name, image by image. Egyptologists once thought this was the work of an enemy. They were wrong. The person erased here was once the most powerful woman in the ancient world. She ruled for over 20 years, longer than almost any pharaoh before her. She built more monuments than nearly any king in Egyptian history, and then, for centuries, she vanished from memory entirely. Her name was Hatshepsut, and this is the story of how a queen became a king, built an empire, and was almost erased from history forever. Begin in Thebes, around 1500 BCE. The Nile floods on schedule. The temples gleam with fresh paint, and a young princess is born into the most powerful family in Egypt. Her father is Thutmose I, a warrior pharaoh who has pushed Egypt's borders deeper into Nubia and the Levant than any ruler before him. Hatshepsut grows up inside a palace of polished limestone and painted columns, where priests whisper that pharaohs are not merely kings, but living gods on earth. She is married, as royal daughters often are, to her half-brother Thutmose II. It is not romance, it is architecture, the architecture of bloodlines, built to keep power inside one divine family. When her husband takes the throne, Hatshepsut becomes great royal wife, the highest rank a woman in Egypt can hold. She walks temple corridors lined with incense smoke, watches priests perform rituals meant to keep the universe in balance, and learns quietly how power actually moves through a kingdom. No one yet imagines she will hold that power herself. Then comes the moment that changes everything. Thutmose II dies young, his reign barely remembered. The heir to the throne is a child, Thutmose III, possibly only a toddler. Egypt has a crisis no temple inscription dares describe directly, a kingdom with no one capable of ruling it. By tradition, Hatshepsut becomes regent, simply guiding the boy king until he comes of age. For a few years, this is exactly what happens. But Egypt is not a peaceful place to be ruled by a child. Border garrisons need orders. Foreign delegations need answers. Temples need a living god to perform the rituals that the priesthood insists keep the Nile flooding and the sun rising. Slowly, something extraordinary begins. Hatshepsut starts appearing in official art not behind the throne, but beside it. Then, astonishingly, on it. Within a few years, she does something almost unthinkable in Egyptian history. She takes the full titles of a pharaoh. Not queen regent, not king's wife, king. Here is where the story turns strange and fascinating. Egyptian kingship was not simply a job, it was a divine role tied to the god Horus, almost always depicted as male. So Hatshepsut does something audacious. She does not simply rule as a woman with power. She becomes, in image and ritual, a king in the fullest sense the role demands. Statues begin showing her in the traditional false beard of pharaohs, in the kingly kilt, with the broad shoulders and narrow waist of male royal art. This was not vanity, it was theology. To the Egyptian mind, the office of pharaoh required this imagery to function as a bridge between gods and men. Hatshepsut was not pretending to be a man. She was performing kingship exactly as her culture believed kingship had to look. Beside her, young Thutmose III is never erased. He appears in art throughout her reign, growing from child to young man, officially her co-ruler. But everyone along the Nile understands who is truly in command. While other pharaohs built their names through war, Hatshepsut built hers through ambition of a different kind. She commissions one of the most famous expeditions in Egyptian history, a fleet sent down the Red Sea to the legendary land of Punt, likely along the coast of modern Eritrea or Somalia. Picture the docks of Thebes as ships return, hulls heavy with treasure no one there has ever touched. Frankincense, myrrh trees, roots intact, ready to be replanted in temple gardens. Ebony, ivory, gold, exotic animals never seen on Egyptian soil. The expedition becomes legend, carved in extraordinary detail on the walls of her great temple, a visual record so precise that modern historians still use it to study ancient trade routes. This was not the propaganda of a conqueror, it was the propaganda of a builder, a ruler proving that prosperity, not bloodshed, could define a reign. Travel now to Deir el-Bahari, on the west bank of the Nile, where limestone cliffs rise like the walls of a natural amphitheater. Here, Hatshepsut commissions what may be the most architecturally daring structure in Egyptian history, a mortuary temple unlike anything built before it. 3 massive terraces climb toward the cliff face, connected by long ramps lined with rows of columns that seem to dissolve into the rock itself. Gardens of imported trees soften the stone. Statues of the queen as a sphinx-like guardian watch over the approach. This was not simply a monument to death, it was a statement carved permanently into the landscape, declaring that this ruler's name would last as long as the cliffs themselves. It very nearly did. Then Hatshepsut dies, likely in her 40s, and for a time, her legacy continues undisturbed. Thutmose III, finally ruling alone, leads Egypt into some of its greatest military campaigns, expanding the empire further than ever before. For years, nothing suggests resentment toward the woman who once ruled in his place. But late in his reign, something shifts. Across temples and monuments, her cartouches, the carved ovals containing her royal name, begin disappearing. Her statues are pulled down, smashed, or buried in pits. Reliefs showing her as pharaoh are recarved to show a king's name where hers once stood. Sometimes her father's, sometimes Thutmose II's, occasionally Thutmose III's own. It is not random vandalism. It is methodical, careful, expensive, and clearly state-sanctioned. For decades, historians assumed bitterness, a stepson, finally free, erasing the woman who delayed his reign. Modern Egyptology tells a more complicated story. The erasure does not happen immediately after her death, but years later, long after any personal resentment would likely have cooled. Some historians now believe the motive was not revenge, but something more bureaucratic and unsettling, an attempt to smooth over an irregularity in the official memory of kingship itself. A woman ruling as a male king did not fit neatly into the religious narrative the priesthood needed for the cosmic order to make sense. Erasing her was not necessarily about erasing a person. It may have been about erasing a complication, so future generations would see only an unbroken line of male pharaohs, each one fitting cleanly into the role the gods supposedly demanded. Whatever the true motive, the effect was the same. For nearly 3,000 years, almost no one would know her name. Fast forward to the 19th century. European archaeologists, reading hieroglyphics for the first time in centuries, find something confusing at Deir el-Bahari, a temple clearly built for a king, yet inscriptions occasionally use feminine grammar. Statues with both masculine regalia and unmistakably feminine facial features. For years, scholars assume some kind of scribal error or a male king with an unusually delicate face. It takes more careful study, more comparisons across damaged inscriptions, before the picture becomes undeniable. The pieces fit together into a single, astonishing identity: a queen who ruled as king, a monument builder whose name had been almost surgically removed from her own civilization. Hatshepsut steps back into history, fragment by fragment, nearly 3 millennia after someone tried to make sure she never would. She built temples meant to outlast empires. She funded expeditions that brought wonder back to the Nile. She ruled for over 2 decades during one of the most stable, prosperous eras in Egyptian history, and still, an attempt was made to erase her so completely that for centuries, the world simply did not know her name. And yet, despite the chisels, the broken statues, and the silence of 3,000 years, Hatshepsut survived. Not in memory passed down through generations, but in stone too vast, too deeply carved, too widespread to ever fully disappear. History, it turns out, is harder to erase than anyone in that ancient court could have imagined. If this story of forgotten power and rediscovered history pulled you in, consider subscribing for more journeys into the people and civilizations that history tried to leave behind. And in the comments, tell me, which lost ruler or vanished city should we bring back to life next?